This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
And welcome to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and it is a Friday here in Pittsburgh, and there's no game this weekend because the Steelers played 3 games in 11 days or 10 days or whatever. Somebody pointed out, it's 10 days. I don't care. It's 3 games in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's what the reality is here. So, Matt, I thought today we'd go through, there are some questions on our YouTube channel here. So
Shocker.
We'll answer some of these questions on here. I also want to comment on some of the comments that were made on here.
Okay.
All right. Now, Steelers Nation Australia, which we appreciate. So, fellas, you need to read the positive comments also. I read. Matt doesn't read it at all. So
I've been there, but it's infrequent, to say the least. And, hey, you guys are all wonderful. I'm looking right in the camera, actually. But 10 years of writing for ESPN.com, I stay away from the comments more often than not. Yeah. That was a quick lesson.
Yeah, I go in and interact because that's just what I do, and sometimes we'll get into it. So, yes, we read the positive comments. We read the negative comments.
I'm sure most of you are swell.
I will many times reply to the negative comments more because oftentimes, well, A, they're attacking me, and B, I'm not going to let somebody put out something, their truth, when it's not reality. For example, today somebody said in a comment to me, why is it, original question, why does it feel like Andy Reid is playing chess and the Steelers are playing rock, paper, scissors? To which I replied, Andy Reid wasn't playing as much chess when he didn't have Patrick Mahomes.
True.
To which somebody then replied, Dale, do not do this. Andy Reid was winning playoff games and playing in championship games before Mahomes, which is not true.
It was.
He made conference championships in the NFC in his early days with the Eagles.
Oh, the Eagles, yeah. And they went to the Super Bowl. Yeah.
He then went 10 years. 10 years.
I don't know.
His last few seasons with the Eagles and his first 6 or 7 seasons with Kansas City, a 10-year period in which he went 2-4 in the playoffs.
Yeah. I always thought he was, during that stretch, pre-Mahomes, he was at the Harbaugh, Tomlin, Peyton level in that neighborhood. Now he's up to the Belichick world. You know, what's changed since? Maybe the best quarterback ever, and Belichick might have had the other one, which doesn't hurt either.
That makes it look better. Yeah, I have all the respect in the world for Bill Belichick. I have all the respect in the world for Andy Reid. I think they're both excellent football coaches.
Yep.
But you look a hell of a lot smarter when you got the best quarterback in the league.
Yeah. I mean, so to Reid's credit, if you look at his history, he took a lot of Ty Detmer, Kevin Cobb teams to the playoffs and was often criticized. You know,
who else has done stuff like that?
You're not winning any games. Well,
who else has taken teams with like Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett?
He got crushed for time management. You know, you always got your nose in your play sheet. You're not dealing with all the head coaching stuff. And then he got McNabb. And it got better. They went to Super Bowl. They went a step further. I mean, McNabb was a Pro Bowler.
Was a Pro Bowl quarterback. Was a very good quarterback.
Very good player.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. They used like the 4th pick in the draft for him or whatever. And then he left Philly, which isn't talked about enough, but I think needs to be. The training camp of the season he left, his son, who worked for the team, passed away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? During training camp, I don't know how he even coached the rest of the year. You know what I mean? And then he's like, I'm just getting it. It wasn't like, you're fired, you stink. It's like, I'm getting out. They didn't have a great year.
Yeah.
I mean, of course. So he goes to Kansas City and is successful. I mean, I think he'd been successful in Chicago or Seattle or wherever. He's a successful head coach. But kept hitting his head on the ceiling. And people forget this little nugget. They were a playoff team the year they traded up for Mahomes. It wasn't like, we're terrible. Alex Smith was good. He was a kind of a Pro Bowl type dude, too. Borderline. He wasn't a great player.
He was the first overall pick in the draft.
Yeah, right. And he was he had his best stint with Reid.
Oh, by the way, the Steelers beat them in the playoffs.
Yeah, right. With Reid as the head coach. And then he gets a transcendent player, and the rest is history, and they're on their way to being one of the better dynasties of all time.
Yeah. Who, by the way, the Steelers also loved. They were
Mahomes.
They were.
Yeah.
Kevin Colbert was a big Patrick Mahomes guy. They brought him in for a pre-draft visit because if you remember, he wasn't even the first quarterback or the second quarterback taken in that draft.
Right. I mean, the Bears traded from 3 to 2, from what I remember, to get Trubisky. Watson went well ahead of him, and then they traded up to 12 or 11. I think it was 11 to get Mahomes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that
and
was
now they're quite good.
And again, I have all the respect in the world for Andy Reid, but he looks a hell of a lot smarter with that guy running his offense.
Absolutely. And same
they
with
did
Montana and Walsh. And,
to their credit, they didn't rush to play him because they didn't have to. They still had Alex Smith.
They had a nice plan.
Yeah.
I mean, because Smith was a high-end player who went on and started elsewhere. Then he had bad injuries. And then Mahomes was too good to keep off the field. But they had no plans on playing him his rookie year.
Yeah.
Because he was a wild stallion coming out of Texas Tech.
This was another one that I got. Dale's cold take of the week, telling us how bad the Chiefs tackle are, but TJ and the D don't get to Mahomes once. Now, I don't want to rewrite history here again, but Matt had the same exact take. We both thought
their tackles stink.
Their tackles are not good. Guess what? The Chiefs know their tackles aren't very good.
Right.
Hence, Mahomes gets the ball out in 2.34 seconds.
Yep. Fastest of his career.
Right.
So I think that needs to be unpacked more because I thought it was brilliant, but it was like great inventions. It's derived because of, meat tastes terrible, we got to invent ketchup. Whatever it is, it's because this isn't working. His mind is so sharp as a quarterback. He's to the point now, I always talk about the axis, the game is slowed down to he's at his peak mentally, but he hasn't declined at all physically.
Right.
Which makes me wonder if he's even hit his peak as a player, period. But anyway, he has it all. And I felt like we should have been on this more, actually, is, okay, their tackles stink. What are they going to do? They're going to get it out quick. Well, what do you do to combat that? It'd be nice if you could play man coverage and bang people at the line of scrimmage, but your only good man coverage corner's injured. So all of a sudden, it's like you're hoping Mahomes screws up, and he didn't,
Not enough.
Not enough, right. So if he gets it out in, 2.36, which is insanely quick.
As I said, Usain Bolt's not getting there
in
2.34 seconds.
That means there's a lot of snaps that are 2.1.
Yeah.
Because he extended some
They schemed
to 3
some of that
4.
stuff up. And, oh, by the way, when they did scheme it up, that's when Jawan Taylor had 2 holding penalties.
Yeah. And he's going to extend stuff, and he's going to run around. Now, I think on those plays, like if you go 2-4 or less, it's almost impossible to get true pressures.
There.
Right.
You're not getting
right. I mean, because someone's going to get in your way. But there were probably, I'm guessing, 6 to 8 pass dropbacks that were 2-7 or longer. Okay, you could get better pressure. Like, I'm sure the Steelers aren't thrilled with the pressure they got.
No.
But he also maneuvers extremely well in the pocket. They kept talking about the B gaps he kept hitting. As soon as a B gap would open up, boom, he's gone. He's one of the most difficult guys to sack in the league.
Yeah.
And if they're going to do that, he's going to be almost impossible.
You're not going to get him at all.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. The week before that against Houston, which also has good edge rushers, I think he was sacked once in that game, and he'd gotten rid of the ball. I think the average time to throw was like 2.54 seconds.
Really?
It was a little bit.
I know it was very low still.
It was a little slower than that.
Yeah.
So I then got asked, well, if that's the case, why didn't the Steelers do that? Well, they thought their guys were going to hold up.
Wilson's a deep ball thrower. He's never a low target time to throw guy. He's gotten him. It's lower here than any point in his career, and he's had some games that are low. Quick
he
get it out.
It was 2.7 seconds.
Right,
against
that's
Kansas City,
near the top of the league at all,
not even
or
close.
the worst, or that's not the highest.
In fact, if you looked at, and I looked this up on the day of after the game, the time to pass for the 3 quarterbacks that played on Christmas Day. Let me find this here. Whoops.
The 4 quarterbacks?
The 4 quarterbacks who played that day. It was, let me find it. This is good radio. Okay, so Stroud was at 3.1 seconds on Christmas Day.
So we're talking about on Christmas
the 4
day.
teams that played that day.
Not season to date.
No. Stroud was at 3.1 seconds. Lamar Jackson was at 3.67.
Sometimes he's incredibly high.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll run around. He has plays where it was 5 and 6.
You watched the play
right.
last night where Caleb Williams, late in the game,
Yeah.
scrambled around and finally hit the pass on, was it 4th down pass, 4th and 10,
Yeah.
to DJ Moore. It's like 6 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, so that skews things quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think, so Russ officially, he was at 2.85 seconds in the
Okay.
game yesterday. For the
Still,
season, that's under 3.
Yeah.
Like if you're under 3, if you're under 2.9, you're about average.
And it's not even like it's a good and bad thing. Like I love Ben Roethlisberger as much as the next guy, but back in his heyday, nobody was timing time to throw.
Right.
I bet he was late. I mean, I bet he was long.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, no doubt about it. At the end, he was insanely quick. But it wasn't good. It wasn't a
And
good
everybody
thing.
complained about it.
It wasn't a good thing.
Everybody complained about
Yep.
it. So that's what you want to see. That's what you want. You want the Steelers.
Dump to Najee, slanted Deontay. I mean, that's all they did, because
The
at
other thing
his
is
stage of
they
his
don't have the
career.
receivers to do that.
No. Right.
Their receivers are built for this offense, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't have an immediate man beater on this roster. I think it was supposed to be Roman Wilson.
Yeah.
He's not available.
He's not available,
Calvin
right.
Austin's not that kind of player.
No. I mean, Pickens can do it.
Pickens can do it, but he gets all the attention.
Mm-hmm.
And
So, I mean, it's not necessarily a good or bad thing in terms of time to throw. It's just a stylistic thing.
it's a stylistic thing. And
Lamar's always going to be high,
I mean, they got a guy in Xavier Worthy that if you put the ball in, they finally kind of figured out, I think, the last couple of weeks, how to properly use Xavier Worthy.
No question. And one thing we said leading in, which definitely held up, was their receiving core is kind of at its peak right now. I mean, they were really struggling to find these things out, especially after Rashee Rice got hurt, because he was their middle of the field kind of Kelsey replacement in a way, and that was a crippling blow when they lost that. Now Brown's back and has his feet under him. Worthy's starting to figure it out, and they're starting to figure him out.
And he's fast.
And he's fast. I mean,
but he can get the ball in his hands, and he might outrun
dangerous.
somebody.
Yep.
Yeah.
But his stuff has peaked lately. And the other guys are fine. Hopkins has settled in, all those guys. But I also think you got the Chiefs on their best day. I mean, they played really, really well.
Another comment that I got. No way, and again, I wasn't comparing. When I brought up the 5 teams recently, it's 6 going back to the 2005 team, that had a 3-game losing streak at some point in their season, including the Ravens in 2012, which to me is they lost 4 of their last 5. 3-game losing streak, won 1, and then lost their last game going into the playoffs, and then got hot and won the Super Bowl. Wasn't saying that's what's going to happen with this Steelers team.
No.
I brought that up to show that even when things look bad, it doesn't mean that you can't regain some momentum
It
going
can
in.
happen.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it will happen.
I'm not saying at all. So somebody said,
I mean, by that standard, it'd be like, well, I hope next year they go on a 3-game losing streak. I mean,
Right.
like,
it's not what I was saying
not
at all.
Right.
K-Love 5765 says, no way you can compare this to the 05 team. Ben didn't play those 3 games lost. 2, the defense was better. 3, the offense was better. Okay. Ben played in that 3-game stretch. They lost to the Ravens 16-13 down in Baltimore. Tommy Maddox started that game.
Okay.
Ben came back and they went to Indianapolis and lost 26-7 with the great defense.
Mm-hmm.
It got torched in that game.
I remember Manning ripped them up. Right?
Yeah. They then came home and lost 38-31 to the Bengals with that great defense that you're talking about. Ben started that game too. Ben started 2 of those 3 games, and the great defense in the 2 of those losses gave up 26 and 38. Now, I'm not saying that the Steelers' 2005 defense wasn't great.
Sure.
But great defenses sometimes have bad games.
100%. And I don't think you said this team's better than the 2005
I said
Steelers.
nothing of the sort.
Right.
Nothing of the
I
sort.
like the 2005 team's chances of winning the Super Bowl better than this one.
That team was coming
No
off
question. Right.
a 15-1 year.
Yeah.
They had a lot of talent. But I was also there covering that team in 2005, and I know the things that were being said.
Oh, I bet the
about
sky
the
was falling
05
too. Yeah.
when they fell to 7-5 and were out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
It was not pretty.
I'm sure the sky was falling fire everybody. Right. Yeah.
Again, if you're tuning into this show to hear us say fire everybody, you're listening to the wrong damn show. That's all I'm going to say.
Yep.
Because we're not going to look at things that way, because it's not going to happen. You got to look at things a little more realistically of what's going to happen here. And there's still season left. they're still going to play a game next weekend at some point.
Well, they're going to play two more.
They're going to play two.
Right.
But they're going to line up next weekend for a regular season football game, and it's the job of not just the coaches on this team, but the players to figure this stuff out so they can win that football game.
Yeah. It's funny. I do a one weekly hit on the Locked On NFL channel, just a national show. And the host asked me, because he knows I'm Steeler-oriented, but even if I wasn't, we were going to go down this road. He's like, what on earth are people complaining about Tomlin for? This guy covers the Jags. He's like, I would kill for that guy. Over and over and over. And he's like, okay, I've been watching the Steeler team closely. They've been on national TV. I've watched almost every snap over this 3-game stretch. And he's a good analyst. And he basically said, okay, so they're not quite as good as the best teams in the league. But most teams would be 0-3 in this stretch. Why is this late-breaking news? I'm like, I hear you. I mean, I don't think they're as good as the Ravens, Eagles, and Chiefs on their best days, And I think most of the league would probably be 0-3 during that stretch, in those buildings, in that amount of time. Okay. I mean, that doesn't mean you stink. I mean, it
right.
means that right now you're not an elite team, and I don't think that that's arguable right now.
Well, that was one of the other comments that I wanted to touch on, is that the Ravens and Chiefs had the same exact schedule as the Steelers, and yet they came through that 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they didn't have the same exact schedule.
No, right.
They didn't open with Philadelphia on the road, then go to Baltimore,
right.
and then come home to play the defending two-time world champions.
Yeah, the Giants were a nice stretch.
The Giants were a nice start to that. The Browns on the Kansas City side of that were a nice start to that stretch.
Right. Yeah, starting with the Eagles is awful.
Houston,
and, by the way, in that Eagles game, you were on the field for like 40-some minutes, too.
Yeah.
I mean, that was an awful
way to start that stretch.
That's the hardest opening round. That's like fighting Tyson in his prime.
Houston got Miami at home.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't the same level of competition. So it wasn't the same exact situation.
And the workload asked of that defense in that Eagles game was as extreme as you'll ever see. I also think there's some good and bad to this, but that Houston and Baltimore getting the Week 14 bye is really helpful before a 3 before 11.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And frankly, I think the NFL screwed up and should have given all four of the teams the last bye. Now, the first 13 weeks aren't easy if you do that. I mean,
right.
It's sure nice to have in week 7, no one's complaining about a bye, or week 10 or whatever.
But you did have some mini buys in there that would have alleviated some of those issues.
Well, and not to mention the Ravens' rest stuff is bonkers this year in their
crazy.
favor, which needs to be examined too.
Yeah.
But
now that situation won't happen.
The Ravens and Chiefs are playing great.
Yeah. Good for them. They've the deal with Netflix is for 3 seasons.
Okay.
So they're going to play these Christmas Day games like that.
Only on Netflix. Okay.
On Netflix.
There'll be 2 Christmas Day games.
The next 2 seasons as well. The difference is next year it's going to be on a Thursday.
Yeah.
In 2026, it's going to be on a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to have a situation where you need to have these teams play 3 games in 11 days.
It's the worst day of the week for Christmas to land.
Wednesday.
Right.
What are they going to, if it had been on Tuesday, what were they going to do?
Yeah,
bump a bunch of the Monday night games back to, I don't know.
I would say Tuesday.
Wednesday's the worst.
Sure. Right.
Because it just doesn't happen. You just don't play games on that day.
Mm-hmm. Which isn't good, bad, or anything, but it is ugly. I mean, it could have been a lot uglier. Yeah. Right.
And quite, you're missing guys. It is what it is. I'm not making excuses. I'm giving you reasons why these things happened. And by the way, they played 3 very good football teams.
That's, to me, is the bottom line.
Yeah.
Those 3 teams are really, really good, and I think are probably playing the best they have all year. I mean, I think Kansas City's really figuring things out. I think the bye and the defensive changes, Baltimore has really paid dividends. Eagles been pretty strong for a while, but you didn't get the pick at Eagles. Right. I mean, the Eagles are strong.
Of course, people on here call me a homer. I'm such a homer that the first 2 games of that stretch, I picked them to lose.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay, I get it. I'm a homer. Whatever. Call me whatever you want. That's the thing. And, again, I appreciate the good comments on here, the people who listen to the show. And, hey, the people who are ripping me or ripping Matt or ripping the show, guess what? You're listening as well. And we appreciate that. And hopefully we're making this entertaining enough and we're getting in-depth enough that you want to continue to listen. leave your comments and all that stuff. That's fine.
I mean, personally, my goal is not to entertain; it's to
inform.
That's
what we're here for.
Right. You know, put some different spins on it.
We're not going to sing songs. We're not going to jump around and
compare it to the other 31 teams and what they're going through. And I think that's what we bring to the table.
That's what we try to do here. Just bring you information, and you can make your own decisions about what you believe and what you don't believe. And if you don't want to listen to what we feel about this, then that's your prerogative. That's the great thing about America.
And I love fandom.
I
love fandom.
Yeah.
And I understand a lot of you guys listening aren't happy with how things have gone the last 3 days. People down at the facility aren't either.
They're even less happy. Trust
I haven't
me.
been there since, but I'm not psyched to go, to be honest.
They're even less happy about this than you are because this is what they do.
They're not singing jingle bells down there.
They can't turn the TV off and get away from this.
Right.
They're living this.
They have to figure out how to get it right.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm down off my soapbox.
There you go.
But we did answer some questions on here that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too. If you guys ever just want to ask questions in general, like a mailbag type of thing, throw it out there.
One last question I did want to get to here is I was asked if any chance that Troy Fautanu is activated in January. I don't see that happening. Mm-hmm. He's at the facility. He's been working out.
Yeah.
But he's not practiced at all.
He's obviously making progress.
Yeah, he's walking around. There's the same thing with Cameron Johnston. Cameron Johnston's now out of the
apparatus.
The apparatus that he had on his knee as had Fautanu. They're both, probably not with Johnston, but if Fautanu had to come back and play, could he? Perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
But would it be fair to him to say, okay, you haven't played football since September as a rookie, and we're going to bring you back out and throw you right into the lineup? Probably not.
I mean, I hope he gets to this point, but it's not Mike Webster's 8th year in the league, or Joe Green's coming back and I'm putting him in the lineup no matter what.
Right.
I mean, right. I mean, it's just, you just don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, how could you possibly bench any tackle, really? I mean, like, where would you put him? I don't even know at the moment,
Yeah.
Maybe he's better than both those guys. I hope he is, but
you've only had one game to show it.
Yeah, right.
And that's the unfair part of it. But anyways, let's get to a break. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. When we return, we'll be joined by Steelers sideline reporter Missy Matthews right after this. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And we're joined now on the Justin Miller Hotline by Steelers sideline reporter Missy Matthews. Missy is also the bringer of the cake. Missy brought a great Santa Claus cake to I believe Rob King tweeted out a photo of said cake before it was demolished in the radio booth.
They got
It's a nice little Santa Claus cake. It didn't look like Santa Claus by the time I got to it.
When you say demolish, you mean eaten like crazy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had no idea, Missy. I had no idea that thing was a Santa Claus cake when I got there, because it was just a pile of cake at that point. I saw the picture from Rob. I'm like, oh, it was Santa Claus, but it was delicious.
Yeah, it was a Steelers Santa. He even had eye black on. But yeah, he did not last very long, and it was weird as people started eating, eyes and parts of his mouth and whatnot.
He probably lasted longer than the Steelers did in that game. That was
no doubt. There was still part, like maybe a slice or two, depending on who is cutting it, left after the game, which I was actually impressed that was left. I thought it would have been completely gone.
It was sitting there in front of Wes Euler the entire game, so I'm sure he was nibbling as the game went on.
They definitely ate some at halftime. I know that. They reminded Max and I of it.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, that was very kind of you, spreading festive cheer.
Mm-hmm.
Missy,
I tried.
We saw at the game on Wednesday. Sounds strange to say.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
Once again, a lot of defensive miscommunications. You saw some frustrations boil over into the locker room after the game with guys talking about that. And I know fans look at this and go, how is this happening in week 16 and 17? And Deshaun Elliott said the same thing. This is a week 1 and 2 problem, not something that should be happening at this time of the season. Take us through what you see on the sideline. Like a general, the defense comes off the field, whether they gave up a touchdown, whether they had a good stop. What then happens? How does a breakdown happen? Which group goes where? Do they? does Terrell Austin come over and talk to the group? Is it just the position coaches? How does that all work?
Well, they all, offense and defense, have very specific places where they sit when they come off the bench. It's always funny when like Chris Boswell and them are sitting at the end. That's usually where like the DBs are. They're allowed down there, but you're not going to find like a Cam Hayward over there sitting on that part of the bench. It's very regimented, and it usually is the position coaches talking to them first. But TA typically always ends up talking to the secondary guys. I feel like they're furthest on the bench. They're closest to probably, where he's coming from, has a conversation with them. But then it is, there was a time where TA brought the whole defense together at one point. Mike Tomlin has done it multiple times during this 3-game stretch of trying to regroup, refocus, and figure it out. Because, as you said, I thought, Deshaun Elliott was very blunt. He was very emotional and heated, and I get it. It was right after the game, and that was not a fun locker room to be in. Many guys didn't even want to talk. But he's right. Like, these are not problems that should be happening now. It would be one thing if it was, weeks 1 through 4, and you're like, all right, they really need, there's new pieces, they need to work through it. It does just feel like because it has gotten worse with each of the 3 losses, and just the open guys, you just think of Travis Kelce's touchdown, even the tight ends in Baltimore, where you're like, how and why? You can say injuries. Max Starks talked a lot about just the fatigue and the battle that these guys have to go through to play those 3 games in 11 days, being that you were playing Philly, Baltimore, and the reigning Super Bowl champs. It wasn't like you were taking a train to Jersey to play the Giants after your bye week and getting to stay home and host a team, and then going to play a team that's, in the playoffs but not doing very well. Yeah, I'm throwing shade. But
yeah, we did last segment a little bit too.
But it's true. I
Right,
mean, when you just look, that stretch was brutal. It didn't matter if this was weeks 3, 4, and 5. Playing those 3 teams in 11 days is not ideal. And I think especially because they were dealing with the injuries on the defense, especially because you did not have George Pickens. And everyone, the Browns game when he didn't play, oh, they're good. No, we don't even need George Pickens. They won without him. And then you go play a real team and you're like, oh yeah, we kind of like when 14's in the lineup, Mm-hmm. And then it was how soon can we get him back type deal. So yeah, I think the only bright spot is that they have ample amount of time to regroup. There's still 1 regular season game left. Work out your kinks, figure it out, because you're only guaranteed 1 playoff game. And we all know that is being one and done is not going to go over well in this town, in this organization, for these players or coaches. So they need to figure it out and figure it out very quickly.
So you sort of touched on it, but over this 3-game losing streak, I mean, has the level of angst on the sidelines increased? I mean, was this definitely the one that was most noticeable, or have all 3 been similar?
I feel like Philly was kind of like you were hoping it was, just like going to be a one-off. And it felt like they were not, I don't want to say finger pointing, but I really feel like that is what it kind of turned into, where Baltimore, you could really see that people were starting to lose it and didn't feel like everybody was doing their job and didn't feel like, everybody was on the same page. And then, of course, I think, Christmas Day, you're excited. You want to go back home and be with your family, celebrate. And you knew you needed to win that game to make it easier on yourself to win the AFC North. And that just seemed to be, I think the lack of complementary football and just the fact that the offense and defense both need fixed. I think that's where you really start to see the overpouring of the emotions and frustrations, which makes sense.
Sure.
Coach Tomlin sat down at his press conference and literally started it with, well, that sucked. And I'm sure he could have used other choice words. They probably just, wouldn't have been used on air afterwards. But that pretty much summed it up.
I'm sure he did use more choice words with the team in the locker room before he came over, and that was a more he had actually had a little bit of time to calm down and was still perturbed by how things had gone in that game. And I think largely, Missy, to me, it was because of how this particular game unfolded. In those previous two games, the Steelers had gotten behind, but then had fought back in the third quarter, going into the fourth quarter to make a game of things. This one against, the only thing that would have changed perhaps the outcome or kind of the trajectory of this game is if George Pickens hadn't been whistled dead early at the end of the first half on that play where he broke free and ran down the sidelines and they hadn't whistled the play dead. If they score there, it makes it 14-13 Steelers at the half. And, it kind of changes the trajectory of the ball game. As it was, they get the 16-10 in the third quarter, and then Kansas City just pulled away.
Yeah, and I think, even go back to the Jaylen Warren touchdown that was called back for the holding call on Darnell. If, like you said, even if one of those went the Steelers' way, imagine if both went the Steelers' way. I just think they knew coming in that Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. Does not matter if it's a high ankle sprain, how severe, whatever. He's dealt with them before. He knows what he's doing, but just how quickly he was able to get the ball out. He was not going to give their pass rush time to get to him and to throw them off. And they executed. And like you said, once the second half, got going, that's where you kind of you felt the letdown really start to happen. And then you're like, oh crap, now this is 3 in a row. This isn't just this game. It's 3 in a row. We were 10-3, and now here we sit at 10-6.
Yeah, I thought that was a very buttoned-up, clean performance by the Chiefs. They didn't screw things up hardly at all. And I thought Mahomes probably played his best game of the year, regardless of who the defense is. I mean, a lot of it's just how well, what level he plays at. It was pretty impressive just to watch him in action at game level, to be where your seat is and watch an all-time great player.
No doubt. And, I've gotten to see him a few times over the years in different circumstances of, games and whatnot. But like you said, I just think it was the level of execution. It's really remarkable to watch how quickly he gets the ball out, knows exactly where it's going, and just even how his receiving core and running backs know what is happening, and it's happening that quickly. And they're just able to get the chunks and to keep moving and to just gash the Steelers defense.
When it's that precise, it's almost indefensible. When it's that precise in the timing. Right.
Correct. Yeah, like that slant to Hollywood Brown, I was just like, whoa, you just have one of those like, wow, they're wheeling and dealing. And, hey, I give them credit. They had to come to Pittsburgh on a short week. That's not fun. We've all lived through the Thursday night games. I know this was Wednesday, but playing on Saturday makes it like a Thursday schedule. And then also the fact that they're playing for the 1 seed. Now they know the playoffs can run through Arrowhead, and they have a first-round bye. And for everybody who's hurt, they're able to heal up. I mean, imagine if Chris Jones played that game. You just think about the 5 sacks that Russell Wilson took, everyone on the offense gave up, and you just think like, man, it could have been worse potentially, which is a scary thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But Missy, we won't take up any more of your time on a day off. You get to spend some time with your boys and do all that fun stuff. Kind of wallow in a pit loss yesterday in a bowl game.
Oh, man.
Wow, you're picking it all.
It took 7 days long to complete, seemingly, but it is what it is. Just not a good couple of days here in Pittsburgh.
Was there a bunch of safeties at the end of that game or something weird?
You go for 2 every time.
Okay.
Yeah, when you go for 2. Yeah. I say it took years off my life. It literally took hours off my life. I was not as productive as I anticipated being when my boys went to hockey practice last night because the game was still on when they got home. So. How's that for you?
There you go. Well, our guest has been Missi Matthews, Steelers sideline reporter. Missy, we appreciate you dropping by. Of course, Missy does so every Friday here on The Drive. He is Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. We'll be back with more right after this. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And, of course, you can hear The Drive every Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. on these very airwaves, or you can download the Steelers mobile app and get it that way, or watch on YouTube and leave us your comments, and maybe sometimes we'll answer your questions in the comments. Matt, for this next segment, I wanted to look at the preseason over-under totals.
Oh, okay.
And see who's gotten there and who hasn't to this point.
Yeah.
With 1 game or 2 games left. So, leading things off here, I'm looking here at Pro Football Reference. They break everything. They did this nicely. They have the win-loss over-under in one column, and then their actual record now.
No, you don't have
in
to,
the next
like,
one. I
have
don't have to
two
go back and
screens up
forth.
or
Yeah, it's
anything.
perfect. So, the Arizona Cardinals, their over-under to start the season was 7.
I remember that thinking that was quite high, considering their defense.
Well, they're 7-8.
Yeah, and they outkicked my coverage with them over.
With
I
2
mean, they're
games
falling
left,
apart pretty quick.
They could get there. They could get over.
They could get over. Right. I don't love their chances, but they could.
The Atlanta Falcons over-under was 9.5. They're 8-7.
A lot of that was based on a super easy schedule, preseason. And that doesn't always play out. But I like their chances.
The Baltimore Ravens over-under was 10-5. They're now 11-5 with 1 game remaining. So they've hit their over.
They hit it, yeah.
Yeah. Buffalo Bills over-under was 10.
And they crushed it.
12-3 right now.
Yeah. A lot of people, myself included, thought this would be a slight step back year. You traded Diggs, get your books in order, but they've been really good.
The Carolina Panthers over-under, 5.5. They're 4-11 right now.
They had 3 or 4.
They got a shot to get there.
They do.
Now, they need to win their final 2 games to do so, but they've been very competitive over the last
I know they have
5 or 6 weeks. They have Tampa Bay
They have
this
Tampa,
week.
and then they have another. It's either Saints or Falcons. They have a division game, of course, to finish it. Maybe.
Maybe.
I mean, considering how bad things were at early in the season.
Yeah. The Chicago Bears.
They're definitely under.
Their over-under was 8.5. They're 4-12.
Yeah, last night didn't do me.
Last night was a disaster. Actually, they're 4-13 after. No, 4-12. They're 4-12. Yeah, that includes last night's disaster.
Really bad.
You wanted to see a how not to handle clock management at the end of a half. That's twice now this year. It cost Nagy his job, or not Nagy. Eberflus his job when he butchered that one against the Lions. Well, they butchered again last night.
They both were horrendous.
Horrendous.
Right? Eberflus doesn't have any excuse. This guy was a position coach 5 or 6 weeks ago. I mean, he got promoted and promoted.
He got promoted twice this season.
Right,
yeah. But that was insane.
Mm-hmm.
So they're 4-12.
They're kind of a mess.
Well under.
Yeah.
The Cincinnati Bengals.
Well under.
10.5 was the over-under. They're 7-8.
Not getting there.
No. The Cleveland Browns.
Well under.
Their over-under was 8.5. Higher than the Steelers, I might add. They're 3-12.
Yep. Not even close.
The Dallas Cowboys.
Under, but sort of explainable.
Their over-under was 10. They're 7-8.
Mm-hmm. And maybe they'll win another or whatever. But they're obviously not going to get it.
It's going to be awfully difficult now that CD Lamb playing.
Lamb got shut down, and they're in Philly this week, or against Philly this week.
The Denver Broncos over-under was 5.5.
I know.
They're 9-6.
He knows how to win games. I mean, he has a winning record as a Denver head coach, and they're not loaded with talent. They've had quarterback changes, and I give them credit.
The Detroit
Lions. They're going
Lions.
to beat the Bengals, by the way.
I think they are too.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to that later in the show. The Detroit Lions over-under was 10.5. They're 13-2.
That's like crushing it, yeah.
Crushing it. Green Bay Packers over-under was 10. They're 11-4.
Mm-hmm.
Blew right by it. They got 2 tough games coming up, but okay.
There's a lot of overs so far. We're only at the G's.
Yeah.
I think some of it's because there's so many 3-win teams that are so far under.
And some of the unders are really far under.
The unders are real.
The Browns.
Right.
The
Bears
were way under their total.
Yeah.
The Houston Texans over-under, 9.5. They're 9-7.
I'm not positive they'll get there.
I don't know.
They got one more, right?
They have nothing to play for in that last one.
Yeah, I'd say why would they even bother, right?
Indianapolis Colts over-under, 8.5. They're 7-8.
Okay. I mean, they're favored against the Giants, and then
they should be favored in their last 2 games.
Yeah. I know they play a division game.
They play either the Titans or the Jaguars, one of the two.
I'm not sure if Richardson's even playing this week, but they'll still beat the Giants.
Jacksonville's over-under, 8.5.
Yeah, they were considered a playoff fringe type team.
3-12.
Yeah.
3-12.
Brutal.
Kansas City's over-under, 11.5. Well, they're 15-1.
Crushed it.
The Raiders over-under, 6.5. They're 3-12.
Not getting there.
The Chargers over-under was 9. They're 9-6.
Yeah, I was big on the the under on that team.
The Rams over-under, 8.5. 9-6.
I'd say they're over, right?
Yeah. The Dolphins over-under was 10.
Yeah, they're not getting that.
7 and 8.
Yeah.
Minnesota's over-under,
Crushed
6.5.
Crushed it. Did
6.5.
anybody beat it by more than them?
13 and 2. The only one.
Kansas City's pretty high.
Kansas City's only 3.5 games over their over-under, though.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota's 5.
Well over. Okay,
yeah,
so even
6.5 over.
They could lose either two, or they could win either two.
Doesn't matter. They're 6.5 over their win total. The Patriots over-under was 4.5. They're 3 and 12.
Yeah, right now they have the second pick in the draft.
Yeah. The Saints over-under was 7.5.
Not getting there.
They're 5 and 10.
Yeah.
The Giants over-under was 6.5.
Not even close.
They're 2 and 13.
Brutal. Yeah, some of these bad teams are far off.
The Jets over-under 9.5.
Yeah.
They're 4 and 11.
Close, right.
The Eagles over-under was 10.5. They're 12 and 3.
Yeah, beat it.
The Steelers over-under 8.
Crushed
They're
it.
10 and 6.
Yeah.
San Francisco's over-under 11.5. They're 6 and 9.
One of the more disappointing ones for sure.
Seattle's over-under was 7.5. They're 9 and 7.
Mm-hmm. Really successful year for them. I mean, last night wasn't a pillar
Wasn't
of
a beauty.
but you know, you got the win, still alive.
Tampa Bay's over-under was 7.5.
Over.
They're 8 and 7. Tennessee's over-under 6.5. They're 3 and 12.
Not getting there.
And the Commanders over-under
Oh, they had to be a big one. That was
6.5. They're 10 and 5.
I was guessing they were even lower than that preseason. And they end up being going to be somewhere between a 10 and 12 win team.
Given everything, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 teams this year with 4 or fewer wins.
Yeah.
There wasn't an over-under in the league this year.
I think 4 is a very,
4.5
very
was the Patriots was the lowest.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have 8 teams go under that total.
Under. I mean, when you see 4 or 5, right? I mean, there's a little bit to play, but there'll be 6.
Do we see that get adjusted next year?
I don't know. I mean, it was a really bad year for the number of bad teams. I mean, even like Browns and Jags, they were considered playoff fringe teams, expectations-wise.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, let's just look through that. Who are the biggest disappointments this year? I think San Francisco.
I think the AFC's loaded with them.
Yeah.
I mean, Jets, Bengals,
Cleveland,
Browns,
Cincinnati.
right?
Yeah.
Jags, Miami. They all looked like, ooh, can the Steelers beat them out for a wild card? Like that was the narrative going into. And Denver stepped up, but those other teams, there was 5 of them that were good expectations.
Did nothing.
They didn't even come close. Right?
No, you're right. I mean, if you looked at it at the beginning of the season, and we talked about this preseason, the Steelers, when the Steelers over-under opened, it was 7.5.
No, it went up. Right.
And it went up to 8 because everybody looked and go, I'm surprised it didn't go to 8.5. Maybe it did in some places because you usually don't get 8.
It's almost always a half.
Yeah, you always get the half
they
on
don't
there.
Push.
And I don't know how Pro Football Reference does this. Do they average them out?
I'm sure one book has an 8,
yeah.
one has an 8.5 or whatever.
7.5, and the other one's at 8, and so they just took the average. But when you look at it in that fashion, the Steelers have won 2 more games than they were expected to win, according to Las Vegas.
Sure.
They're 10 and 6. There are some other teams on here, Minnesota being chief among them, that have outkicked their coverage.
Really crushed it, yeah.
But you can't look at this season and say, well, this season, what a disappointment.
Oh, no.
Now, I get it. You can be disappointed by what's happened of late.
Yes.
But nobody in their right minds, you and I both picked them to lose in Philadelphia and in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember if I picked them to make the playoffs or not. If I did, it was as a wild card. I mean, as like a 6 or 7 seed,
Yeah.
I didn't think all those teams in the AFC would, namely Cincinnati, of all of them, would just fall off a cliff. I took the Bengals to win the division.
So did I.
Yeah.
And I had Baltimore and Pittsburgh going in as wild cards.
I think I did too.
Yeah.
I can't remember who was 2 and 3 for me. You're talking about biggest disappointments. I would say Dallas and the Niners were the 2 biggest NFC disappointments.
Yeah.
Especially the Niners.
The Niners,
nothing
Niners
went right
in particular,
for them. Right.
yeah. 6, you go 6 and 9 right now.
Yeah.
Your over-under was 11.5, which was...
And they got hit hard by injuries.
11.5 was tied for the most,
was near the top,
highest in the league. If you looked at the odds to go to the Super Bowl prior to this season, they were in the top 3.
Oh, yeah, because the NFC looked like an easier path, too.
Yeah.
I mean, they may have been number 1.
Right.
I mean, they did, because Kansas City looked like they had a tougher path. AFC looked a lot harder when the season started.
So, folks, we're not going through that here in Pittsburgh.
No.
Like, people are complaining about this and that, and I get it. Again,
Did
nobody.
Houston go over or under?
They're right on the number. They're right under the number. Their number was.
They need one more win to get
They need
there.
another win. Their over/under was 9.5.
Can I say, like, that's a disappointing year to me, despite
You're 9-7
because they had so much momentum
after
last
being
year.
5-1 to start the season.
Yeah, I would say that's a little bit different situation. That's a second-year head coach, second-year quarterback. They got this, they've got this whole NFL thing figured out. They're steamrolling through. They added Diggs. They added, Daniel Hunter. They were ready to take a step with the big boys, and they didn't. I mean, they're going to win their division, you may even win your bet on the over, but you're holding on by the skin of your teeth.
To me, the two AFC biggest disappointments are both in this division.
I did the Ohio teams.
Cleveland's over/under was 8.5. Now, I didn't think that was right.
No, I took the under. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't, because that was counting on Deshaun Watson to be not who he had been the previous 3 seasons.
Yep.
They're 3-12.
But you could have made the argument they had the best defense in the league last year, or one of, and it's not this.
It's not
year
been.
either. Right. They don't have a running game.
Similarly, Cincinnati's over/under was 10.5.
And I took the over on that one. I was on board with Cincinnati.
They're 7-8 right now, and they can't blame a bunch of injuries.
No, you can't.
It's the defense.
It's a defense. I mean, it's very simple what the problem is. I mean, it's one side of the ball is an anchor.
And that was supposed to be, 2 years ago, Lou Anarumo is, he's why isn't this guy a head coach? He's been in the league. Look what he's doing with this Cincinnati defense.
Yep.
That's not going to be the case this offseason.
And the other thing, too, is I don't like I'd much rather be in Houston's shoes or Miami's or even the Colts, for the most part, of now what do I do? I mean, Cleveland's in
they're no man's
an
land.
awful spot.
Yeah.
I mean, at least they have Burrow. I mean, that's great. But
Yeah.
they have a lot of things they have to figure out, too, to get back to being, 11, 12-win team in the preseason of, where you're going to be.
And the problem for Cleveland this year is that there's so many other bad teams out there. They're not going to be in position to draft a quarterback this year.
Probably not. And
I
I don't even know if you want to this year.
Right. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
But it's bad.
It is bad. So, coincidentally, I got this thing from Sports Info Solutions today talking about who's been hit hardest by injuries, and they break it down offense, defense. And a couple of the teams that just wanted to, who are the extremes? Packers, Bills, Commanders, Falcons, Broncos got hit the least, and that adds up. All those teams have had pretty darn good years. Teams hit the most, the Lions, and it's all on defense. They have this chart, and they're still managing. Browns were next. They have got hit pretty hard, but don't tell me Watson's.
Watson getting hurt was a
it's
blessing.
not the same as your starting quarterback.
He'd still be the
hurt.
starting quarterback right now if he hadn't gotten hurt.
Right. Cowboys were next. That adds up.
That adds up.
They have 3 studs, and Lamb just went on IR. The other 2 missed massive portions. Giants, Niners. Those are the teams that adds up. I mean, that's kind of what it looks like.
Where do the Steelers fall in that?
Right in the middle.
Yeah.
Right in the middle. They are dead middle with a much more so offense getting hurt than defense.
Yeah, I just wonder if they considered Russell Wilson the starter to start the season.
I was curious how they
counted that
Fautanu too.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
If you have a first-round pick, you would assume he's going to be a starter, and they never got that opportunity.
Yeah, he started 1 game and then got hurt.
Yeah, I actually need to click on it and read further, but there's just a chart here that's kind of interesting.
Because they have had, the offensive line injuries early in the season were extreme.
There was a lot of it,
Yeah.
I mean, even Pickens for a couple games, that's a starter,
Yeah.
So, they're right in the middle.
I
think Freiermuth missed a game or 2, right?
No.
No, has he been for all?
I think so. I think he's played in all of them. But the Steelers' injuries have kind of been clustered at the beginning of the season.
O-line.
With the O-line.
Yeah.
And now late in the season with the defensive backs.
Right, which is a tough way to live.
Yeah.
It'd be better if you could spread them out. That's obviously not how the world works.
Now, we'll see about Joey Porter Jr. Maybe they get him back here and, they're somewhat healthy again going into the playoffs. You do
have a nice long break.
You've dealt with the offensive line stuff, but at this point, you'd love to have James Daniels and Fautanu available.
Oh yeah, even Herbig was.
Herbig, yeah.
It would have been useful there for a while, or no question. And your top 3 picks, you only got one out of him. I mean, he's been a good one.
Yeah.
But Roman Wilson hasn't helped you either. I mean, that's we talked about that earlier in the week. I mean, we're talking about rookie classes and things. Theirs got hit pretty hard by injury.
Yeah.
But McCormick looks like a keeper, and Frazier looks like a keeper. Wilson looks like a keeper. Peyton.
Yeah. So that's the situation. But I thought it'd be interesting to look at those over-unders.
Next year's camp will be kind of fun from that regard. Is you're gonna have a whole rookie class, and those two.
Yeah.
In
oh,
their
by the
second
way.
year. Right. I mean, we kind of dealt with that with Trice, but he was a 7th-round pick. He was a first-round pick.
Yeah,
right.
You weren't necessarily counting on him to become something. So. Anyways, let's get to a break. That's going to do it for hour number 1 of the drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with hour number 2 right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and it is time now for the Fantasy Football Focus here to kick off hour number 2 here on this Friday, and we'll put together a DFS lineup.
All right.
Looking at the matchups here and what we can do, we're going to play a 10-game slate, or 10 games to pick from, the Saturday night late game, and then everything on Sunday.
Okay, so not the first two Saturday
we
games.
can't do the 2 Saturday games, and so it's just
whatever. That's
the
fine.
way it works out.
Right, it's cool.
All right, that gives us 10 games to work with here. So, looking at the defenses and special teams, you have the Bills at 3,600, the Colts at 3,500, the Bucs at 3,400, Vikings at 3,300, the Dolphins at 3,200, the Rams at 3,200, the Commanders at 3,100.
Have we heard if Winston or DTR is playing?
They were both questionable on yesterday's. They're both limited in yesterday's practice.
Okay.
DTR's with the hip. I think Winston is a shoulder. So, I don't know.
Okay. I was looking real quick because I think I just saw something on my phone, but maybe not. Nope. Okay.
The Eagles are 3,100. The Jaguars 3,000. Saints are 2,900. The Titans are 2,800. The Packers are 2,700. The Falcons are 2,700. Raiders are 2,600. The Cardinals are 2,600. The Cowboys are 2,500. They're going to see Kenny Pickett.
Mm-hmm.
The Browns are 2,400. Giants are 2,300. Panthers 2,200, and the Jets at 2,100.
Okay. I mean, we went through this yesterday, but I mean, to some degree,
we have a little more knowledge on some stuff now.
Yeah, and kind of like Miami and Cleveland. There were some cheaper ones I thought made sense. Tennessee and Jacksonville. I probably prefer Tennessee, but I don't see a whole lot of points in that game.
Yeah, that's 2,800. I don't hate that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go with that. We went the Raiders in our lineup yesterday, which didn't exactly work out thus far, but we'll see. We got like 38 points out of the 4 guys we had going in that
played last night.
Thursday night game, so we need the other guys work moving forward.
It wasn't a fantasy bonanza last night unless you had defenses.
I'm surprised we got almost 40 out of
when you
game.
said that, I was like, really?
Yeah. DJ Moore.
Caleb ran.
Yeah, he ran. Mm-hmm. DJ Moore had a productive game.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking.
I mean, nobody.
And Charbonnet had a productive
game, he looked good,
relatively
too.
speaking.
Yeah.
Looking here at the tight end position. Brock Bowers, 6,700. Trey McBride, 6,200. Jonnu Smith, 5,700. Njoku is out.
I'd say that just came across, too. Yeah, he is done.
Hawkinson is 4,500. Kincaid, 4,300.
Are the Packers very vulnerable to tight ends?
The Packers are 21st.
Okay. I was reading something today, or listening to something today about how they thought Hawkinson against that style of defense sets up really well.
Cade Otton is out. That could get you a cheapie. His backup is, we'll get to it here.
I'm not sure.
Brenton Strange is questionable. He is 4,000. Tucker Kraft, questionable. He's 3,900. Kyle Pitts, 3,900. Zach Ertz, 3,800. Jake Ferguson, 3,700.
I mean, no CeeDee Lamb.
No CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah. I'm sure they're good against tight ends. Their
they're
safeties
fourth,
and linebackers are good.
Yeah.
I mean, Rush is a capable player, though.
Right. Chigan Kwankwo, 3,600. Jalen Johnson.
I hesitate to say this. I know you're picking them up to play against me, but they're playing the
Jaguars, who are 24th against opposing tight ends.
Yeah. But the one thing I did hear over the last 24 hours is he's much different man versus zone heavy teams. And this one doesn't. Whatever it is, it's the bad one for him. But still, I would play him.
Tyler Higbee against Arizona is 3,300. Grant Calcaterra, 3,100.
It's not bad. My Problem with that one, though, is when Pickett came in, every ball went to Brown and Smith.
Yeah. Foster Moreau, 3,000.
It's one of those sneaky ones.
He got some looks last week.
In the red zone, he could catch one.
Durham was the one I was thinking of. Payne Durham, 2,900. Because Carolina's 28th against opposing tight ends.
That doesn't surprise me. All right.
And if you look at it,
I assume he'll be on the field all the time.
Payne Durham last week had 5 catches on 7 targets.
Really?
Now, it only went for 29 yards.
Yeah, I don't think he's a breaking 80-yarder, but, you know.
But he replaced Otten. He got 7 targets.
I don't hate it.
He is $2,900.
I would say he's got to be dirt cheap, right?
Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
Let's try it.
Okay. Let's pay up for some big dogs then.
Yeah, that gives us, I think
just catch 2 or 3 balls.
That's the thing with the tight end position. Unless you're willing to pay up for one of the studs.
And even the studs right now aren't exactly Kelsey in his prime. That you just trust it every week.
Yeah.
You know, with
you might get a 6.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas Payne Durham might get you a 6.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you're looking at.
I don't think we've ever paid up heavy for a tight end.
Not this year.
Right.
It just hasn't made a lot of sense. And $2,900, that's almost as cheap as our defense. We just spent $5,700 on a defense and tight end.
Like as good as McBride is, he still hasn't got a touchdown.
Right.
And
so his ceiling is like 15.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it is. Quarterbacks, Josh Allen, 8,500. Jaden Daniels is 7,800. Jalen Hurts, he's not playing.
He's not
7,500. Baker Mayfield, 6,900. Sam Darnold, 6,400. Jordan Love, 6,200. Kyler Murray, 6,000. Anthony Richardson is 5,900, but he's questionable. Tua is questionable. He's 5,800.
If I knew Richardson wasn't playing, Flacco would be really attractive because it'd be dirt cheap, I'm sure.
I did look up the weather forecast in Cleveland for Sunday. It's supposed to be in the 50s, but raining.
Okay.
It's like a 90% chance of rain throughout the game.
And Waddle's not playing, and it could be sloppy. Yeah.
Right. Matthew Stafford, 5,700. Aaron Rodgers, 5,700. Bryce Young, 5,600. We talked about him yesterday.
We strongly considered him yesterday, and I think we should still strongly consider him.
Kenny Pickett, 5,500. Dallas is 31st against opposing quarterbacks. Cooper Rush, 5,400. Michael Penix is 5,400. Spencer Rattler is 5,300.
Pretty kind against.
They're 10th.
Are they?
Not as much as you would think.
Spencer Rattler, we may have gone too far.
Mac Jones is cheaper than Spencer Rattler. He's $5,200.
Never runs at all.
Never runs. Yeah. Aiden O'Connell, 5,100. They could win that game.
I mean, they could win, yeah.
Mason Rudolph against Jacksonville is 5,000.
Could also run.
Jacksonville
could also win.
$3,200. They're 32nd against opposing quarterbacks.
The problem is those backup type guys. None of them are runners.
Yeah,
you know.
Dorian Thompson-Robinson, he runs. He's 4,800.
Don't know if he's in play, but
yeah, he has no injury designation.
Really?
They've come out.
So maybe that's
they've come out with their. He'd have to run though because his ceiling for throwing the ball is like 125 yards.
Right, like Judy's unusable.
Yeah,
they just ruled out Tillman in the joke.
He'd have to run for like 80 yards and a touchdown to make it worth.
Yeah,
even at 4,800.
Too cheap here with those guys. I kind of like Bryce Young.
I do too.
Yeah,
5,600. Okay. He's been running.
He's been efficient. The receivers are good. I'd consider Thielen.
I would strongly consider Thielen.
Yeah. You just want to do it? He can't be crazy expensive.
Not crazy. Let's see what we get there when we get there. So running back Saquon is 8,600. Do we like that Kenny Pickett is? Well,
I think we like his touchdown potential for push stuff.
Like they get to the one, he's running the football.
I would think he's got a better chance of that. Does he have a better chance to catch more balls with or without Hurts? Probably better chance.
Probably.
You know, and I just think
Dallas is 22nd against opposing running backs.
And I would just think that the game plan in general is we don't have our best quarterback. Let's lean on our best player.
He's also at 1,800 yards, 1,838. Do they want to get him 2,000 in this game, or at least make a run at it? And
get him over 100 today, and then get to 2,000
and then maybe he sits next week or something like that.
Mm-hmm. No, but they'll keep an eye on 2,000. There's no doubt.
8,600 though is a lot.
Oh, I know. But I mean, I'm not doubting he's going to have a huge game.
Bijan Robinson, 8,200.
I think he's going to have a huge game too.
Josh Jacobs, 8,100. Minnesota's third against opposing running backs.
That doesn't surprise me.
They've been good.
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor, 7,900. They're 29th against opposing running backs.
I like it. I know that sounds like it's chasing points. and I would generally say that's a no-no. But Richardson is not 100%. He's been getting like 8 to 10 carries a game. So if he plays, I think they run him less. If he doesn't,
the Giants have given up the ghost.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think Taylor was very embarrassed by his dropping the ball at the 1.
Yeah.
And has since been a monster. I think he goes crazy in this game.
Devin
It'd be great if Richardson doesn't play.
Yeah. Devin Achan is 7,700.
Okay. I mean, he caught a lot of balls.
They're 5th, though, against opposing running backs. Kyron Williams is 7,500. We talked about him yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona's 26th against opposing running backs.
I probably just lean on him.
James Conner, 7,400. He's questionable.
I don't know if he's going to play.
Kamara, 7,300. He's probably not going to play. James Cook, 7,200. Chuba Hubbard, 7,000. Bryce Irving, or not Bryce.
Irvin, yeah.
Yeah.
Irvin.
6,700. Tony Pollard is 6,400, questionable. Breece Hall, 6,300.
Yeah, we considered him too.
They are 30th
Pretty
against opposing
talented
running
player
backs.
to be that cheap.
Yeah. Aaron Jones is 6,200. Brian Robinson is
I
6,100.
thought this yesterday too. It's a little cheap for Jones. I mean, he's one of those guys that doesn't matter what the game script is. He either is running to get the lead or he's, catching the ball.
He hasn't got as many catches as you would think.
It's not a ton. It's not a ton. I own him in a bunch of leagues. I mean, he's been fine.
They kind of limit. Looks like they're kind of trying to limit him to under 20 touches per game. Brian Robinson, 6,100. Rico Dowdell, 6,000. Jerome Ford is 5,900. Tyrone Tracy, 5,800.
Is he questionable?
No designation. And Indianapolis is 24th against opposing running backs.
I mean, he produces and they throw him the ball.
Rashad White, 5,700 again. Carolina, 32nd. No,
I'd rather go.
The problem is that you'd rather go with Bucky Irving.
Yeah.
Alexander Madison, 5,600, has no injury designation.
Do we think he gets 70% of the backfield touches?
They're 28th against opposing.
That's got to be bad.
backs.
Yeah.
Kendre Miller on the other side of that is 5,500. Vegas is 19th against opposing running backs.
Are either one threatened in terms of being the guy? It's not an easy backfield to decipher.
No.
It's not real flashy.
I think Kendre Miller gets more touches. Like Abdullah is still a thing.
Yeah, he still catches the ball.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't love it.
I wouldn't think we have to go into that game too heavy.
Tyjae Spears, 5,400. But Pollard may play.
Spears has been good, though.
He has.
He's catching the ball no matter what.
ATN is 5,300. Bigsby is 5,200.
I'm telling if I'd rather Bigsby or ATN.
I don't know at this point.
Yeah.
Abdullah is 5,100. He has back-to-back 20-point games in fantasy. Just
because of receptions?
Because of everything. If you look at his last week, he had 7 for 38. He had 5 catches for 47. He also scored. The week before that, it was 3 carries for 8 yards, but 7 for 58.
That's the thing. I mean,
and also scored.
If he's that cheap and he's going to get 8 targets, he's worth it.
Again, back-to-back 20-point games for that guy.
Yeah. We could put him in. I mean, there's some bigger dogs I wouldn't mind going after.
That's a nice cheap pivot for a guy. And again, that should be a competitive game.
That's the thing, is they're both terrible, but that's easy throws to running backs. It just screams to me in that game.
Yeah.
Just make things easy on your quarterback.
I'm just Yeah. I'm not seeing anything below that. Jeremy McNichols is 4,600.
The one thing that's interesting about that is he's clearly the 2, and Robinson had 2 bad fumbles last week. I mean, he could be in the doghouse with, a stumble.
Yeah. And McNichols, he did catch 4 passes last week.
He's a capable receiver.
Yeah. So I just don't count on it for a lot of points. So it's kind of my problem with Abdullah as well. Like if
he's not going to blow up.
If they get up in that game, which they very well could.
They could. Bucky Irving, I think we put him in the other day.
He's in our other lineup, yeah. I think he's going to be chalky as heck.
Probably.
I don't mind Tyrone Tracy at 5,800 either.
No, that's a good one too. Yeah, but with him being no designation, he'll catch balls.
Singletary will eat into him a little bit, but
they're featuring Tracy.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
Want to go Tracy and Irving?
Yeah. I was about going even more expensive, a Taylor or a Bijan.
Well, if we have enough money left over at the end, then that gets us, we can average 6,500 the rest of the way here. So, At wide receiver, Justin Jefferson, 8,300. We went through these the other day. The top
They didn't
guys
seem worth it to me.
didn't jump out to me. Nakua is 8,000. A.J. Brown, 7,800, but we now know it's Kenny Pickett.
Mm-hmm.
That might not be the worst thing, though.
No. I mean, he fed
throw to
those
him.
two, right?
Mike Evans is 7,500.
I think we grabbed him the other day.
Terry McLaurin, 7,200. Devontae Adams, 7,100.
Been pretty good.
Tyreek Hill is questionable. All three of those guys are questionable. Tyreek Hill is 6,900. Brian Thomas is 6,800. They're third, though, against opposing wide receivers. Malik Neighbors is 6,600. Well, we are.
I don't get too invested.
We have one giant in the lineup. Ooh. Jerry Jeudy is 6,500.
No.
Cooper Kupp, 6,500.
Yeah.
Drake London, 6,400.
Is he even an injury designation?
No.
Okay.
Jordan Addison, 6,300. Garrett Wilson, 6,100. Jacoby Myers, 6,000.
It's not terrible. We talked about him yesterday.
Yeah. Jaden Reed is 5,900. Again, the Vikings 32nd against opposing wide receivers.
I heard today, too, they allow a lot of wide receiver rushing production.
That's what he does.
That's what he does.
Yeah. Devonta Smith is 5,800.
And Watson's out, right?
Yeah.
Christian Watson, yeah.
Thielen, 5,700.
That might be cheap for Devontae Smith. I thought that yesterday, too. If they're going to really funnel it to two guys, he's a pretty darn good football player.
Yeah.
You know?
Thielen is 5,700.
Ooh, I'm in on that.
Yeah. You look at his production over the last...
I think he had one down game, but he's been like 5 out of 6 have been strong.
6 targets, 7 targets, 11 targets, 10 targets in the last 4 games. He's got 5 catches for 43 and a touchdown, 5 for 51, 9 for 102 and didn't score, and then 8 for 99 but did score.
Yeah. So last 2 were real good. I'd say put him in. That's a good hookup.
Jacoby Myers is...
He's kind of interesting.
5, 9, 10, 11, 15 in the
Targets.
last 5 targets in the last 5 games.
It's him and Bowers all
And
day long.
nobody else. Yeah.
It's a good
Problem
way
is
to-
he hasn't squred in any of those games. He's only got 2 touchdowns this
I don't
season.
know if they're going to put up a ton of points,
Yeah.
period. But
I kind of still like the Garrett Wilson
yeah.
squeaky wheel. And Buffalo is 21st against opposing.
Okay.
What's the weather supposed to be like there? It's supposed to be rainy. Well, same as Cleveland, rainy. I don't love that.
Nah, I don't love that either.
Let's see here. Khalil Shakir is 5,600, same game. Calvin Ridley in a revenge game against Jacksonville with Mason Rudolph at quarterback is 5,500.
I think his usage has been good lately.
What did he do the first time against them? I think he scored, if I remember. Against Jacksonville, first time around, he had 12 targets, 7 for 59. So he didn't score, but he had 12
still,
targets.
He threw the ball a bunch.
Yeah. That was
I'm
a Mason
cool with
Rudolph
that,
game.
yeah.
They lost that game, too. They want to win this one. Yeah, I think Ridley gets used.
I'm fine with that.
And then
Put him in. We should be able to get a big dog.
now we can go get we got $15,000 left here for the final 2 spots on the roster. And
I mean, we could get a Saquon or a Bijan or a Taylor.
or a Puka.
Puka.
Which one do you like the best?
Jonathan Taylor.
So if we go Jonathan Taylor in the flex,
He's the cheapest, I bet, of the bunch from them, too.
yeah, he's 7,900. That leaves us 7,100 then to spend on our last receiver. That's Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, Jerry Jeudy, Cooper Kupp, Drake London.
Adams and Thomas are my favorites.
Well, yeah.
Although we said there's weather for the Jets game.
Yeah. That might. So if you look at last 4 games in targets for Devontae Adams, 13, 12, 11, 12.
Yeah. They got something going on between the two of them.
He's got 7 catches for 68 yards and a score, 9 catches for 198 and 2 touchdowns, 9 for 109 and a touchdown, and 5 for 66 and a touchdown in the last 4 weeks.
Unless you're worried about weather, I got no problem with it.
I don't even know that I'm worried about weather because Aaron Rodgers is going to throw him the ball.
Yeah, and he can throw in wind and
Devontae
rain.
Adams, I mean, we've started him the last couple of weeks, and
They have some blood pact going on or something. Like they want to end this season at least strong for those two.
yeah.
I believe there's something weird going on.
Well, I think Adams knows he's getting cut at the end of the year.
Yeah,
They're not going to pay, what was it, 35 or 37 million, whatever it is.
Him, right.
And Rodgers is trying to get cut.
Maybe.
with the stuff that he's saying about like ripping Woody Johnson and the media and stuff.
Agent,
yeah,
then they can go be buddies.
and
again.
and then they'll go to
Tennessee or whatever,
Tennessee or wherever it is, and they'll be together again. Poncho and Lefty.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm fine with putting Adams in. I mean, he's been really productive. He's been really good.
Yeah. All right.
I'm a believer.
I got no problem with that. Let's lock it in.
Imagine if Wilson gets traded and they cut Adams and Rodgers isn't back. I mean, obviously they'll add things, but that could be a strange, different team next year.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. All right, so we got Bryce Young at quarterback, Bucky Irving and Tyrone Tracy at running back, Devontae Adams, Calvin Ridley, Adam Thielen at wide receiver. We went old at wide receiver again. Payne Durham at tight end.
Yeah, that's sneaky.
Jonathan Taylor in the flex spot, and the Tennessee Titans defense.
I'm cool with it.
All right, it is locked in and loaded. That's going to do it for the Fantasy Football Focus. Matt and I are going to take another break. We'll be back to preview all the weekend's games right after this. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and it is time to take a look at this weekend's games, Matt, starting off with 3 games on Saturday.
Yeah, they're not bad.
A loaded day of football. The first one
this week's insane, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, the NFL is trying to get me divorced.
Is it working?
I think so.
You got the 9-6 Chargers at 1 o'clock at the 3-12 Patriots. The Chargers favored by 4.5. The over/under 42.5.
I think they have their way with the Pats.
I do too.
I mean, I know it's a long road trip on an early day, all that's nonsense, but they're just better and they have more to play for. And
I think the Patriots threw a lot into last week trying to beat the Bills. They almost did it. They're going to try to run the football and take care of Drake May a little bit. And Chargers run defenses.
Oh, it'll be
solid.
Fun. Yeah. I think they'll get after them too.
Yeah. I think they win that one going away. The next game, a 4:30 game, the 9-6 Broncos at the 7-8 Bengals. I don't want to say this is an elimination game because the Broncos can still get in.
Oh, for them.
The final week.
It's definitely a Bengal.
They play Kansas City, but it's definitely an elimination game for Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm. They both have a lot to play for.
Yeah. Cincinnati favored by 3.5, and the over-under is 49.5.
I picked Denver to win it.
I think they win it outright.
Yeah. I mean, they got they got the corners back, which should at least limit those two receivers.
Yeah.
They're not going to take them away, of course. But their pass rush is really good, and their protection's terrible. And I think Peyton and
Cincinnati's defense is
right
bad.
It's real bad. Right?
I mean,
and
it's
last couple of weeks we haven't seen it as much because they haven't played anybody.
Like if we were ranking the 32 units offensively and defensively across the league, Cincinnati's defense would be somewhere in the 60s.
Yeah, I agree.
And they're only 64 that units that we're talking about. There's some other offenses right now that are bad. And things of that nature.
The Saints offense and things like that.
But they've got no reasons for this.
No, right. This is kind of who they are. This is what they built. It's one of the worst in the league. No, I think Denver beats them.
I do too. I think they'll do. I think Denver will actually run the ball against Cincinnati,
I do too.
And they haven't really run the ball. You got the 7-8 Cardinals at the 9-6 Rams. That's an 8 o'clock start. The Rams favored by 6.5. The over/under 47.5.
I like the Rams big.
I do too.
I mean, Cardinals put both tackles on IR this week. I mean,
they've been gutty all year long.
Yeah, Kyler hasn't been great.
Yeah.
And they're not deep, and they're getting hit by injuries, and their season's shot.
We have to watch. If we say somebody's not playing well, that means we're making fun of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's how that works.
A lot of people aren't playing well.
Yeah. Moving on to Sunday's game. You got the 7-8 Cowboys at the 12-3 Eagles. Philadelphia favored by 7.5. The over/under 40.5. Kenny Pickett against Cooper Rush.
Yeah, and for that reason, I think they can keep it within 7.5. I wish Lamb was playing.
That would make it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I might really regret that, but because there's a half on there, I think Rush might be the better player right now. I mean, he's played okay. I also think giving Kenny a whole week to prepare is helpful.
Yeah, I got to stick.
Got to be a Barkley.
I got to take Philadelphia at home. Mm-hmm. If CeeDee Lamb was playing, I would take the 7.5.
Yeah, for sure.
He's such a big part of that offense. He just is.
It's gonna, and he's
got
force multiplier type guy. Yeah,
and they're not going to have enough offense.
I'll take the points, but I don't want to touch it.
I mean, Saquon might run for 200 in that game.
He might. And I do think the Eagles' pass rush is legit, and that defense is probably the best in the league right now.
Yeah. At home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they still need something to play for.
Right.
Dallas doesn't.
You got the 4-11 Jets at the 12-3 Bills. Buffalo favored by 8.5. The over/under 46.5.
I'm going to take the points. I still think Rodgers, Adams, etc. are giving it all they got. I don't love Buffalo's defense, but Buffalo has a habit of destroying some teams. They could win this one 40-3.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be blown away by that.
I think the rain levels the playing field a little bit, as we saw in the Cleveland game with the snow. I'll take the 8.5 as well.
Yeah, so let's take the points. Division game.
The Bills are 23-5 in division games since 2020.
They're starting to take it over when Belichick and Brady ducked out, basically.
The Jets, on the other hand, are 5-23
Terrible
in division games, which is the worst record in the league in division games. 5-23.
5-23. How do you look yourself in the mirror?
You get the 3-12 Raiders at the 5-10 Saints in a game that nobody wants to watch.
Give me the points.
Las Vegas favored by 1.
No, I'm taking Vegas. I'm taking Vegas. I think their quarterback's better.
The over/under is 37.5.
I don't think it's going to be pretty.
Yeah, the Raiders just have more weapons.
And they actually have
Bowers,
weapons.
Jacoby Myers.
They have legit weapons.
Yeah.
And I think their quarterback's a little better.
Spencer Rattler.
Brutal.
Ugh.
The Saints are favored against anyone.
Yeah, it's
them and the Giants shouldn't be favored against anybody.
Well, the Raiders are favored.
Oh, they're by 1.
No, by 1. Yeah. Which
in their building.
In their own building. Yeah. You got the 7-8 Colts at the 2-13 Giants. Indianapolis favored by 7.5. The over/under just 40.5.
I honestly don't think the Giants have any interest in winning. They got the first overall pick. They're happy about it. I don't care if it's Flacco or Richardson. They'll take a different approach, but they still win by 8 or more.
Either way, they'll still have the best quarterback on the field.
Right.
Yeah. And, yeah, I just think they blow them out. Yuck. The 4-11.
Sometimes you forget this time of year that how bad some teams can get, and then when people start shutting them down, like, man, it can be rough.
It gets really bad.
It can get rough.
The 4-11 Panthers are at the 8-7 Buccaneers. Tampa Bay favored by 8. The over/under 48.5.
I thought that line's too big.
I'll take the points.
Yeah, me too. I mean, Carolina is very prideful, trying to build something. The offense is legit. I think Tampa wins. They're a better team. They got a lot to play for.
Carolina's head coach was the offensive coordinator last year.
Knows Baker like the back of his hand.
Yeah.
Right. No, I think they keep it close.
Yeah, I think they keep that one within range. I mean,
they keep it close.
Buccaneers lost last week to Dallas.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not world beaters.
No.
You've got the 3-12 Titans at the 3-12 Jaguars, and yet another game nobody wants to watch. Tennessee favored by 1 on the road, even though they lost to the Jaguars at home. The over/under 39.5.
Yeah, this game is saying thank you to Raiders Saints because 99% of the time this would be the worst game on the slate, but not this week. I'll take the Titans.
I'll take the Titans as well.
Yeah, I don't know who the better quarterback is.
You can't possibly lose 2 games to this Jaguars team.
Right. I was kind of thinking the same. And they're okay in the line of scrimmage, defensively.
Yeah.
Bad game, though.
The Jaguars, however, are 6-3 in their past 9 games against the spread.
Really?
6-3.
Yeah. I mean, I guess they're not as horrendous as the public thinks.
Yeah. But, yeah.
I mean, they're not good.
Mac Jones against Mason Rudolph.
I know.
Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph are starting games this week.
Yeah,
in the
they are.
NFL.
Yeah, they are.
The 7-8 Dolphins. This is a 4:00 game. 7-8 Dolphins at the 3-12 Browns. Miami favored by 6.5. The over/under 39.5. It does look like it's going to be Dorian Thompson-Robinson again.
When I thought it was Winston, I thought they might win the game.
I thought so too.
Slop it up. Winston gets hot. I don't know if I'm still taking the points or not. I'll take Miami.
I don't know how windy it's going to be there.
Yeah.
That's the kind of the thing that I'm looking at. It's supposed to rain throughout the game.
They don't throw the ball down the field, though, that much.
Right.
There's a lot of left and right stuff.
He doesn't have a big arm.
No,
I don't know. But I guess
sounds about right with the line.
Yeah, I would
Miami,
probably take Miami. They need the game.
Mm-hmm. Their defense isn't bad.
The big game of the day. The 11-4 Packers are at the 13-2 Vikings. That's a 4:25 game. Green Bay favored by 1 on the road.
I think there's only 2 4:00 games, so it'll be real easy to pay attention to this one.
Surprise! Green Bay is favored in this game.
They're
over-under.
favored?
They're favored by 1 according
I think
to
that
this.
changed over the week.
The over-under 48.5. Even if it's say a pick'em game, which is basically what it is.
Yeah. I think it went from +1 to -1, over the course of the week. I'll take the home team here, especially if you're going to give me a point.
Yeah.
I think it's a very coin flip type of game, but that is not an easy place to play.
No. We'll say this. So Jordan Love was struggling against the blitz early in the year. First 6 or 7 games.
Which the Vikings did more than
Vikings, and that included the game against the Vikings. And in the last 6 games, his QBR against the blitz, it's ESPN stat, 97, which leads the league.
Wow. That's a good offensive coach. He makes adjustments throughout the year well. And
it's a young quarterback.
Young
and
offense
you get better,
in general. Yeah.
They get a lot of eligibles that are catch the ball. And
I don't think Watson's playing. I'm not sure about Kraft. But
yeah,
I'll take the Vikes.
I'll take the Vikings as well. The 8-7 Falcons. This is the Sunday night game. 8-7 Falcons at the 10-5 Commanders. Washington favored by 4.5. The over/under is 48.5.
I don't know what to think of Penix, but I do know what to think of Bijan, and he's been. If it wasn't for Henry and Barkley, we'd be talking about Bijan like crazy. Falcons D's gotten respectable. I might pick him to win, but if you're going to give me 4.5, I'll definitely take it.
Yeah. The Commanders averaging just 2.64 yards per carry the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
They're putting everything on Jaden Daniels' shoulders.
It's coming through, but it's hard to live that way.
Yeah.
Does Washington have a lot to play for? I mean, they're going to give it everything, but
I think they've clinched a spot.
But they're not going to be ahead of the Packers or Vikings in wild card,
right?
So I mean, I don't think they're locked into the 7, but it's pretty darn close.
Yeah. I'll take Atlanta in that one.
Mm-hmm.
And the big Monday night game, well, at least it was when the season started. 13-2 Lions at the 6-9 49ers.
Yeah.
Detroit favored by 3.5. The over/under 50.5.
Like Trent Williams has been shut down. They're grabbing linemen off practice squads and maybe starting them. I think they could wallop to that game.
Yeah, I think the Lions. I mean, this is one of their last potential outdoor games.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's going to matter.
I don't think it's going to matter. I mean, they translate well enough outdoors. Golf's gotten better with that stuff. They have an O-line.
They're 7-0 on the road this year.
How are they?
Which is the longest streak in franchise history.
I'm shocked that line's not like 6.5, 7.
They have lost 14 consecutive road games to the 49ers.
Huh. Oh, maybe it's like a Steeler-Eagle thing or something goofy.
Yeah.
But
doesn't go back as far. But
yeah, I mean, they're the same conference. They play each other a little more often. Oh, the other note on that one. You can't discredit the Niners eliminated the Lions last year.
Yeah.
You think they didn't forget that? I mean, and that's a team that runs it up.
Oh, they'll have some kind of goofy play drawn up, and everybody, look at Ben Johnson. Well, how cute.
Right.
It's the same thing.
They'll throw a touchdown to Penny
that I would say about the Chiefs when they did the ring around. The ring around the Rosie play didn't work, by the way.
Right.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
It was all cute and everything, but the play didn't work. They didn't score on it.
Yeah. Goff like fake fumble stuff and all that.
Yeah, that's all well and good. If you win the game.
Yeah, same as going for it on 4th down all the time.
Yeah.
No, but I think the Lions will not be gentle to the Niners.
I don't think they will either.
Yeah.
I think they're going to want to kick them while they're down.
Yeah.
I think
eliminate us. We're never going to forget it. Yeah, stomp on it.
That's a Dan Campbell.
That's just how they're built too.
We're going to bite your kneecaps off.
Mm-hmm. No, it's one of my favorites. I think they win that one big.
Yeah. So that's this week's slate of games. There's a few good ones on there.
There's a couple of real stinkers, but there's some good ones too.
Yeah, there'll be some stuff to watch. Saturday's slate's actually better than
Sunday.
Not bad,
right? I mean, you got 9
some meaningful
hours in a
games.
row,
yeah,
decent stuff. Right?
Yeah, stuff that really means something in the playoff race.
Mm-hmm.
So, be a good one.
Yeah, it'll be fun to get together Monday and see where all this sits. Because then we still don't know what time people are playing next weekend and stuff, right?
Not yet.
I thought that would happen by now, but maybe it'll happen today. Who knows?
I don't think the Steelers will be playing on Saturday, but
okay.
I think it largely might depend on what happens in these.
So there's no Monday night games in Week 18.
No.
Is there a Thursday night game coming up?
I don't believe.
Like a week from yesterday? I bet not.
I don't think so.
Because
that's New Year's Day.
Well, plus you get a long week to
You're
prepare
also
for the playoffs.
There's also a bunch of college bowl games and stuff like that.
But there's Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know how many Saturdays?
I don't.
Okay.
I haven't looked that far.
Yeah, I haven't either.
But
first I'm thinking of it.
Yeah. Anyways.
Cool.
Let's get to another break. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. This is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. We'll be back to finish up the show right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, we have one more game to preview this weekend.
Last segment of the week. You going to pick your score or I'm going to pick my score? What are we talking about here?
Last segment of the week.
Clue
We have a huge, massive game this weekend between the Lollygaggers and the new sheriff in town.
Yes. So is this my second year in the league?
I thought it was the third.
That's what I wasn't sure, yeah. And I'm ready to assert my dominance as the new sheriff in town.
I don't know about that because this is my 7th championship appearance in the last 11 years.
Okay. Well, you had a lot lesser competition back then. That was like before the merger.
Okay. All right. So let's go
I see these jabronis.
Let's go through the lineups here and see who has.
All right. We might need some, the gallery over here might need to chime in.
All right.
Who
so
they like better.
At quarterback, Matt has Jaden Daniels.
Yes. Pretty happy about it.
Quarterback, I have Jordan Love. I could have played, and I thought about playing last night, Caleb Williams. Thank goodness I didn't put him in the lineup.
I played Goff over Daniels last week, but that was partially because I knew my opponent was kind of a cream puff, and I just wanted high floors. I'm swinging for the fences with Daniels, though.
So I do believe you have an advantage there because Daniels is going to run more.
I was paying attention to it a little bit when we were going through the DFS. Daniels is second, I think, behind Allen in terms of cost.
Yeah.
But Love could do what? There could be a lot of points in that game.
There could be a lot of points. He could throw a bunch of touchdown passes in that game if it turns into
no
a track
weather.
meet.
I could see that being a shootout.
At running back, this is where I have an advantage.
Well, Saquon's a monster.
I got Saquon and Breece Hall.
Okay, you're starting Hall, yeah.
You have Devin Achane and Aaron Jones.
Mm-hmm. Quality.
No, they're both good players.
The reason I've gotten there.
Yeah. But Saquon's been a monster.
Saquon's been a monster. And I do think Pickett makes him even better.
Yeah, I do too. Because he's going to get the touchdowns.
The goal line stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the reality of it. And Dallas's defense is not great.
Yeah.
It's kind of the reason why I made a trade for him at the trade deadline, looking ahead to this part of the season.
Yeah.
Knowing that they had Washington last week and Dallas this week, and they.
Would you rather have Jones or Hall? I'd rather have Jones.
Probably, but it's
they're both in the same neighborhood.
Again, playing against Buffalo's defense in that situation. Again, rain could help that as well. It's close, but I would give my team
on the same tier.
A slight advantage there. Interestingly enough, at wide receiver, you have Jamar Chase and Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
I have Justin Jefferson and T. Higgins. I mean, it's kind of pretty darn close.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that they're the two Bengals against a good Bronco team, standalone game. We're both going to be watching, of course.
Yeah.
And it's a division game that could knock off the Bengals. Does Surtain just travel with Higgins and eat him up, or does he battle Chase? Does he left-right it? Moss is back.
Could be the key to our game.
Could be. There's no Levi Wallace out there to just whoever
pick on.
We're just going to go all over. I don't love where Wilson's trending. I mean, he's okay, but there could be some squeaky wheel
stuff could be real
in DFS.
But
who was your other receiver?
Justin Jefferson.
Yeah,
maybe you've heard of him.
Right. He's all right. He'll be fine.
I'm hoping that Green Bay Minnesota game, we both got guys on both sides of that one that.
For you, it'd be better if it's a barn burner than for me because you have a quarterback.
I went it back and forth. And I have Jefferson and Love.
Right.
I also
I have Jones.
Yeah. I want that to be.
Jari Alexander's already been ruled out.
Yeah,
which helps.
At tight end.
But Jefferson and Chase, I mean, basically,
they kind of
I mean, the best two.
Chase is averaging 22.3 points per game, and Jefferson's at 20.2. I mean, either one of them is capable of having a 30 or 40 point game.
They have a lot to do why we're even having this game.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
they were both of our first round picks, by the way, back to back.
Yeah. I think you picked right ahead of me. Right?
You had the 2 slot. I had the 7.
Mm-hmm.
You traded back to 8, and that was my choice.
I remember I liked
the first
8
round,
players.
And it was Jefferson or Chase, and I'm like, and at
that point, Chase
was still holding
out, right? Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to take the safer pick.
I would have too.
And
who averages more points this year?
Chase has been slightly ahead.
Okay, because he had that one game that was insane.
Yeah. At tight end, you've already had Mark Andrews play.
Yeah, it was good.
He gets
not
a 14.8.
Yeah, he caught a touchdown.
Yeah, he was projected at 10.2, so he actually outperformed the projection.
Got the cheapy touchdown, which made me happy.
I pivoted from that because initially I have Tucker Kraft.
He's questionable though.
Well, he's now off the injury list.
Oh, is he?
There's
Okay.
I may still change that. I don't know.
Well, you picked up Chig.
I picked up Chigankwonkwo.
He's been hot as could be.
Based on the 21 targets he's gotten in the last 2 weeks. And
Yeah.
I kind of needed something there. Like, I like Tucker Kraft. I think he's a fabulous player, but that Green Bay passing game is so diverse.
You're also heavily invested in that game.
Right. So,
you already
you start,
have Love. If
you
Kraft
start looking
does
at the
well,
targets the last few weeks, it's 7, 5, 2, and 4. That's
and
not
Will
enough.
Musgrave's back.
Musgrave is back. It's not enough to get me the 14.8 that you got unless he scores. Whereas Chig,
And if he scores, you get Love points.
right.
You know, I would probably play Chig.
Yeah, Chig. If Chig gets his 10
I hope he
targets,
falls for that.
if
This
Chig,
is a segment I just lie the whole time.
yeah, well, we're
No,
through
I
with the
actually
lying.
would, yeah.
We're through with the lying part. Yeah, that was
I
was
would play Chig.
That was all week long. But if Chig gets 10 targets, he can get to Andrews 14.8.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my thinking
That's
there.
the thing is, they're not playing a good team.
The flex-ish position for both of us is interesting. You have Rico Dowdell in there right now against the Eagles.
I don't love it. I think he could go a little bit backwards from where he's been without Lamb against a really good defense.
Yeah. I have Tyrone Tracy in my flex spot.
Yeah. I mean, we just stuck him in
Dowdell's
DFS.
averaging 15.5 points per game, and Tracy's averaging 15.4. They're almost the same dude. We think both of those teams are going to lose.
Yeah. I don't think either one's in the ideal situation.
Yeah.
Who do you have on the bench you'd even consider?
I have Marvin Harrison Jr. against the Rams.
Okay.
It's okay.
That's all right, yeah.
In the last 2 days, I've picked up
I know you've been busy.
Amir Abdullah and Kimani Vidal. Now, I picked up Kimani Vidal because Gus Edwards has been declared out.
Okay.
And J.K. Dobbins was limited all week long and is questionable to come back and play. Vidal, it might be Vidal's backfield against the Patriots on Saturday. So I'm kind of holding out here, and I'll have to make a decision.
That's a bold move, though, to
I know.
trust my only other option. I don't really even have another option. I thought about Waddle, but he's not gonna play. I mean, the rest of my bench is Tillman, Ferguson, Ray Davis. So I'm going with Dowdell no matter what. But I don't love his matchup or situation in this one.
Yeah.
But he's been good. I got him as a throw-in in a trade, but he's been good.
Worked out well.
Yeah.
I had early in the season, I picked up Tyrone Tracy before he became a thing.
Yeah.
And then I needed a bench spot during bye weeks, and I cut him, and my son picked him up. He had a game where he blew up.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, my son cut him. It was the game against Seattle. He had a 4-carry, 2-yard game against Dallas in week 4. Then he had 18 for 129, and for some reason my son cut him because I think he had somebody coming back. And
You didn't bring that boy up right.
I said to him that I saw him the next day. I'm like, why did you cut him? Or actually, after I picked him up, I'm like, you should not have cut Tyrone Tracy. He goes, well, he's not the starter. I'm like, he's going to be the starter.
You might have said you're going to take him out of the will or something. And you ended up with Tyrone Tracy.
There'd have to be some money in the will. He's going to end up owing money when I die. On defense, I was going to make the move. I actually put in a waiver claim for the Colts, and you beat me.
I did
to
like
them.
2 weeks ago. Just 'cause I knew their last 3 games were total junk.
I had them on my roster going into last week, but my other defense was the Vikings. I didn't like their matchup.
But you didn't want to cut them.
I didn't want to cut the Vikings, and I picked up the Packers last week against New Orleans, which actually worked. I didn't. As it turned out, I didn't need that because I scored 206 points.
Yeah.
And won my semifinal game by like 90.
But they shut out the
Saints. They had a massive.
That was the right move.
I was a dog in going into last week's game, even though I was the number 1 overall seed. So I got to go for the best play possible here.
You were one of the teams. You would have won either way, but you were one of the teams that benefited from actually playing against Josh Allen in the semis. I lost 2 games where my team was loaded and Allen killed me.
Yeah. And then at kicker, you have Chase McLaughlin.
So who's your defense again?
I have the Packers.
Okay. So if it's a shootout, that hurts you.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, it helps your other guys, but there's got to be another defense out there.
Darnold will throw some to the other team.
True. But when Jefferson's doing touchdown dances, you're going, oh, that was -4. That was,
Yeah. I'm not going to get a massive game out of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
There's not a lot of great streamers.
There's just not. Because
I picked up the Colts thinking this
the
is
problem
bottom line.
is we had some of the teams that lost carried 2 defenses all season long.
Yeah, there wasn't much to pick up.
There's just
In this
nothing
league,
out
for
there.
whatever reason. There's too many on rosters.
Quarterbacks and defenses and tight ends, and I can't say anything. I have 2 tight ends on my bench right now just because I couldn't cut them all. Mm-hmm. I have Brenton Strange out there as well.
Well, this time of year is weird too.
But I'm also streaming tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
So after I traded away Brock Bowers to get,
that's how you end up getting Saquon. Right?
That's a part of my Saquon deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll see about that. But I have Brandon McManus against Minnesota in that game. So
you're heavily invested in that.
I had Jason Sanders. I cut him because I didn't like him going to Cleveland to play in the weather. I'll pivot to Brandon McManus. He's kicking indoors. I want the track meet in that game. See how it works out.
And I have the Tampa kicker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had been living with the Washington kickers all season long.
Yeah.
And
they kick a lot of field goals.
They kick a lot of field goals. But
so my son gets a kick out of this because he's real big into fantasy now too. The experts project me to win by 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
And my son's always like that. He's like, who should I start that? Blah, 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 blah. And he's like, yeah, but ESPN says this one's going to score 18, this is going to score 15. I'm like,
can't look at that.
I'm like, Mike, I know more than that.
Yeah.
That's if I'm like, I used to be those people. I mean, like, they would hire me to do that.
Well, the experts said.
I love to get cocky with him. I'm like, don't listen to him. You have the best resource on the planet in your house.
Caleb Williams was supposed to score his ceiling or his projected score going into last night's game was 23.6.
Who?
Caleb Williams.
Oh yeah.
He scored.
Runs, yeah.
He scored 9.8.
You would think you'd throw a touchdown, or there'd be a touchdown.
Well, he
in
had
the
one
game,
call
right?
back.
Yeah, true.
But yeah,
I would have played Love either way.
Yeah, I mean, I got.
Love's a better player.
He's a better player. It's a bigger game.
Yeah.
And again, I expect a track meet type game there. So on your bench, you have Waddle.
Not much on my bench.
DeAndre Hopkins, the Broncos defense, Jared Goff, Ray Davis, Jake Ferguson, and Cedric Tillman,
he's out.
He has no injury designation this week.
Tillman?
Yeah.
No, he's been ruled out.
Has he been ruled out?
Yeah, him and Njoku I saw this morning.
They haven't. I guess they're just shutting Tillman down for the season then.
I assume so.
Yeah.
Denver D's great, but I'm not playing against
this
the
week.
Bengals.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm going to definitely play the Colts against the Giants.
That's why. I mean, I actually released the Vikings defense to pick up Vidal or Abdullah because I'm not going to play them, and it doesn't matter after this week. They've been great all season long.
Next week means nothing for us, right?
Nope,
like
we're done.
Some leagues, they just have like if you win it, they give you $10 or whatever.
It's a winner-take-all kind of league.
Yeah.
So, not necessarily.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
So that'll be the so watch on ESPN. It's a featured game. Coaching advantage to Williamson.
It's a close. It's you came into this favored by like 5. Like I said, I was a 10-point dog going into last week's game, and I won by 90. So
Yeah. That's right where you like to be.
I mean, if you look for the star power, we both have star power. We both have. There's a reason why we're in this game.
So I don't know how much time we have, but
it's our show. We
go as long as we want.
Yeah.
Matthew Berry put out his way too early top 50 picks for 2025. And I thought you'd get a kick out of this because Chase is 1, Jefferson is 2, Barkley's 3, and they're all in this game.
Yeah.
Then Bijan, who's not. Achan is 5. So then you got to wait a little while. But talk about star power. We have 4 of what he projects to be the top 5 picks in next year's draft.
And really, Chase and Jefferson, if you look at the first round, are 2 of the few guys that actually hit in this year's first round.
Of all the receivers, I mean, the Tyreek.
And we were picking 7 and 8?
Yep, exactly. That worked out well. Me trading from 2 to 8 was very beneficial.
Well, who would you have taken it to?
Might have been Bijan.
I would have taken Bijan at 2.
Because McCaffrey went 1. We didn't know things back then.
And Bijan's been fine.
Yeah, I think that was my pick. And I liked Hall, too, but I favored Bijan.
Yeah. I traded for
and
Hall.
I guess I'd have been okay, yeah.
I mean, I actually, not to toot my own horn, but my draft was pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm.
I took Jackson Smith and Jigba late.
Yeah.
I got Brock Bowers as the last tight end. Everybody else had already taken a tight end. I took Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
I had Drake London in like the 3rd round.
I'm trying to think, but I bet my
valuable
best pick
pieces that I traded to acquire Saquon Barkley and Breece Hall.
My best value had to be Daniels.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was like
you took him
round or something.
I was
going to
take him. You took him, and then I took Love And lo and behold, we're both in the championship game.
And I think that was my first quarterback taken.
That kind of shows you that
right.
The teams that had Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson made the semifinals. That's who we played last week, but we advanced and they did not.
See, the thing is, it's a 12-team league. The two of us are both, ruling it. But the other 10 fellas, they could just listen to the show.
They could, because
we can't listen to their show.
We end up
and
talking
get
through this stuff,
right.
and a lot of times we end up sniping each other on things to pick up. And
I didn't love us picking next to each other. That was one. I knew I was going to take the deal when I moved from 2 to 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
I thought there was 8 good players. I'm like, we're picking right next to each other in the middle of the round. We're going to snipe each other
we
every
spent
round.
3 months talking about this.
Right. I knew you weren't going to take Richardson or a Chan. They were 2 guys you were down on, but
Yeah. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's show and for the week.
Best of luck to you.
Best of luck to you. He's the one talking all the smack this week. You should see the texts that have gone out.
I don't even know those dudes.
Some of them.
A couple of them, yeah. There's a couple of people in the biz.
Yeah. Anyways, that's going to do it for our show today and for the week. Matt and I'll be back on Monday. We will have shows Monday, Tuesday. Guys, we have a show New Year's Eve.
What's the New Year's story? Guess we'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
We're always the
when
last
we get there.
to know.
Nobody
Yeah.
tells us whether we're doing a show New Year's Day or not. No, we have no idea. But we will do a show New Year's Eve, I guess, at some point. Mm-hmm. And then we'll be back
I'm up for whatever.
Thursday, Friday for sure to preview the Steelers Bengals at 1:00. We don't even know what time the game is next week.
Yeah, right.
I assume it's going to be a 1:00 game on Sunday, but who knows? Could be something different.
I guess Monday we'll have some of these answers.
We'll have answers. Yeah, for sure.
As well as the champion of the league.
We may not know that yet. Anybody playing Monday night? No, we'll be decided.
Okay.
It'll be decided.
Didn't think of that. Okay.
There you go. But anyways, for my partner, Matt Williamson, who's going to lose this weekend, for Justin Miller, who wishes he was in his championship game in his fantasy league, and for Tyler Vittmeyer, making sure our video gets out there on YouTube, I am Dale Lolley. We thank you for listening to this edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.